and I feel like I'm losing time, but I don't know how I'm here. The sunlight has turned to gray, and I feel like I'm losing love again. I don't know how I'm here. And it's you that I want and need. And it's you that I want and need.
That's how you drive a Genesis. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a 2011 Genesis Coupe Track Edition, and I finally got my hands on one of these thanks to my friend Richard. He was kind enough to let me drive it, and I will tell you, the first thing you notice when you get in this car is it's very balanced. So when you go around the bend, even with this near stock suspension, it just has aftermarket springs on it, about 1.5 inch drop. It's very, very direct where you want it to go. The Genesis is kind of one of those cars, in my opinion anyway, where you don't really have that much to prove when it comes to straight line speed. It's just not one of the, it's all about the balance, it's all about the fun. And so far, after driving it for about 5 minutes, I like it. What's really interesting about the exhaust on this car is that it has attenuators on the resonators. So when you, say, want to cruise around town, it's really quiet. But if you want to get into it, it opens up. This car in particular is not stock. It makes 293 to the tire and 276 pound-feet of torque. So it's a drastic improvement over the stock form, which Richard tells me they make like 240-ish to the ground. The tune is what really wakes this car up. Out of the box, you still get a really fun car, but with the little tiny aftermarket modifications, it's the way to go, absolutely. When the Genesis Coupe came out, it was really out of left field. It really came out of nowhere. And what I mean by that is Hyundai was just, in my opinion, getting their act together. Hyundai had been one of the biggest laughingstocks of the automotive world for years, and they always gave you good value for your money, but in comparison to other things in competition, you would get the competition. But when they announced that they, instead of having the Tiburon again, that they're going to have a rear-wheel drive sports car, the entire world was like, wait, what? But what Hyundai did was announce they have that sports car, and I think that gave them a lot more of a reputable reputation that they tried something different. They made a rear-wheel drive sports car with some balance to it and made it semi-track focused. And with that reputation, I think it gave them a step up with just their entire company, and even the Genesis sedan is like driving on a cloud. Not that it has any relation to this car, but just an example. All right, so how does the Genesis handle a bend? All right, so we'll ease around it. So when it comes to the interior of the Genesis, how does it do? The Genesis does, for its price range, it does pretty well. Yeah, there's plastics here and there, but this is also, like I said before, their first real attempt at a sports car, so you can't really get that mad. Second, I really like the gauges though. The gauges on them are really crystal clear and they don't look cheap. It's not one of those cars where you look at it and you go, they look like they made that out of cardboard. Yeah, the exhaust has a very interesting note. Like this V6, it's very different from everything I've ever heard, really. But it's like the mix between a Japanese kind of vibe, but at the same time kind of a low-end grunt to it. The first year of this car, the interior needed a little bit of work, I think. The thing is they use this kind of cheap silver stuff, and it made it kind of tacky and cheesy. It almost looked like Hyundai was trying too hard. It was like, yeah, we're making a sports car, let's make it as flashy as possible. But I think it kind of backfired on them. Now when you look into this one, there's some chrome in it, but it's just right. It makes it look more classy, and it adds to the black color and everything else. Speaking of color, the color of this car, this is my favorite color on the Genesis. The color is actually called Nordschleife Gray. So you're basically like in a Korean car, but so inspired by the Germans that they had to say Nürburgring somewhere in the car. What's interesting is, if you do some research on the Genesis, the benchmark for it was the E46 M3, which all of us know in the car world is kind of a legend now. Actually, not kind of, it is a legend. For them to put that high of a benchmark, that takes some serious guts. And I'm proud of Hyundai for doing that. I'm proud of Hyundai in general. I mean, this car so far, you never know what you're gonna get when you get in it, but it's really, really rigid. That's probably the best way to describe it. Is it's confidence inspiring and rigid. I can see how if the car didn't have the aftermarket support, like if I drove a bone stock one, I don't know if I'd like it. But with this extra, just a little bit of oomph in the tune and everything is smooth. The power band is really smoothed out. It doesn't fall on its face. You can downshift at any time period and go, and you know what's gonna happen. You know exactly what you're doing. Another thing about this one is it revs higher. Originally, it revs out to 6,500 on the stock tune and stock everything else, but this goes to 7,000. That little bit of difference almost makes all the difference, because you can just keep revving out, and when you're around a corner, you don't have to change gears as soon. But you get almost all of the torque right at 2,500 RPM, so you're already getting that pulling sensation, but it keeps going. Factory cars nowadays, they'll have an amazing mid-range, but they just fall on their face, and this isn't one of them. You know, the throttle response is really, really good, but if you let off of it just a little too much, you buck like this. And I've done it quite a few times today, I fully admit, but it happens. Another little kind of gimmick that the Genesis has is a kind of a torque meter, so every time you get on it, it goes up and down. It's like a cute little gizmo for you to be giddy about, and I can totally see how people get in this car during the test drive and go, I have to have this car just because of that. Go! So all in all, for only having basic bolt-ons, so it has the AEM cooler intake, a sulfur racing tune, and with the exhaust system, it's a good package. This is, I think, how the car should have came from the factory. That's how I feel. You know a car is tuned right when it feels like it should have came from the factory. Another good thing is the clutch is super light, and the shifter is very nice. Its only thing is I have missed third, I think, twice today. But I think it's because I instinctively go just to the wrong place. And it's a little bit loose, but in a good way. It's just notchy enough to know you're in gear. So that's more fun. One thing about the car that is a little interesting is the brakes, and the brakes are good. They are good, but you do have to kind of go into it and then you brake. It's not one of those, you hit the brake pedal by that much and you just stop. What comes with the track pack on this is that they have 4-piston Brembos on it, but then they basically forget to give you really good performance pads. So essentially you have the OEM pad from the normal package, but you have bigger brakes. So basically what you would probably want to do, say if you want to go to autocross or something like that, you would probably slap some really nice pads on it and you'd be set. But the pads definitely need a little bit of work. I think if the OEM pads, yeah, they need to be like, stop. I will admit, when the Genesis Coupe first came out, I thought the front grille looked hideous. I really did. I thought they needed to clean up the front, which they have. The new gen, they gave it a nice facelift. But with this one, if you kind of change it up just that much, look how much better this looks. It looks so much cleaner of a car. Also, it has some nice, clean fog light covers and some aftermarket taillights. What's interesting is that Richard, for 9 years, had a Tiburon, and he built it over time, you know, part by part. But then before he got this car, he did the right thing and he did his homework. Do I want this car? Do I have a game plan? What am I gonna do? Am I gonna do it all at once? And that's exactly what he did. He knew exactly what he wanted and he did it all at once. And now this is how the car is. And I think he made the right decision. All right, so let's go around our S-curve. Brake, and I can do a little bit lower. There we go. Alright guys, I want to thank you all so much for watching this quick little review video. I had a great time. I hope you did too. And I want to thank Richard so much for letting me drive his beautiful Genesis Coupe. And I will see you guys next time, and take it easy.